Hello mate and welcome back. In this video we're going to take a very quick look at the Adobe Photoshop interface. So when you first download and install Adobe Photoshop on your first run, this is pretty much the screen that you're going to be presented with. And as you can see, it has some suggestions at the top for tutorials and things to learn. And when you've used it a few times, you're going to see some files listed down here, your most recent documents. However, because this is the first time that you've run it, this will be empty. So the first thing you want to do is click on the Create New button. And once you do that, there will be a number of options available to you of presets, or alternatively, you can set up your own presets here. As you can see, I've got Instagram story dimensions for this one. But if I go to default, you can see that I've got 1920 by 1080p, 300 pixels per inch. The important things that you really want to look out for here are A, your orientation. You also want to check the pixels, so you don't want to accidentally have this at like 1920 centimeters or anything like that, because it will create a massive image. Pixels per inch really depends on the format that you're using. The common ones are 75 and 300, but there are other versions of that. The next thing that you want to look at is artboards. Generally speaking, I never use them. I don't really see any benefit to them. However, if you are a professional illustrator or something like that, this might be of some use to you. I generally keep most of my images in landscape orientation. However, if you hit the portrait orientation, you can see that your dimensions switch places. RGB color, generally speaking, with 8-bit depth. If you're working with 16 or 32-bit depth, some of the functionality will not be available to you. Background contents, you can either have it as a color, white, black background color, or transparent. I generally leave that on transparent so that I can put whatever I want into the image. Once you've chosen the dimensions, the orientation, the resolution, and the background color, you can hit create, and then what you'll see is your image in front of you like this. You will see rulers down the top and the left hand side, which show you how many pixels your cursor is at. As you can see, the little white lines that move in line with your mouse. So if you need to get something roughly accurately selected on the 1000 across pixels mark, you can do that using this ruler. Like so. Across the top, we've got a standard menu bar there. We'll go into more depth of those in later videos. What you see below that is actually a contextual menu. Currently, I have the Move tool selected, so you can see that the options here are basically contextual towards the move. However, if I select the Marquee Selection tool, you can see that the options here have actually changed. And if I were to change to, say, the Brush tool, the options change again. So that leads me into the next toolbar, which is obviously this one here, which is our tool options menu. We have multiple tools to choose from. It can be quite an intimidating menu until you realize what each tool does. I would say I use about 50% of the tools in this menu on a good day. Most of the time I'll only use 2 or 3 items from it. On the very right hand side, as you can see, we've got 3 panels. We've got one which has a color, a swatch, gradients, patterns, and our editing history in it. And all of these are draggable. You can drag them out, you can have them like that, you can have them docked inside other menus like this. It's entirely up to you where you put things. If you want a specific workspace, you can select this drop down menu at the top here, and you've got Essentials, 3D, Graphic and Web, Motion, Painting, Photography. You can actually save a workspace, or you can delete them from your list. So that's up to you how you lay those out. So I'm just going to drag that back to color because that's the one I use more often than anything else. The next menu tab down is Properties, Adjustments and Libraries. To be honest, I never open Adjustments or Libraries. I always leave it on Properties, because what it does is enables me to see the properties of whatever I've got selected in the Layers panel. And you can see that there's a whole bunch of other stuff there that I rarely use, so I tend to just not have those visible. The very bottom shows us our Layers palette, which is something we're going to talk about in a second. Behind that we have channels, so you can select RGB, just red, just green, or just blue, which is quite useful if you want to apply effects that only change one of those colors. And then you've got paths, which is something we're going to talk about in a later video. Photoshop is the software which basically set the standard for non-destructive editing. And what I mean by non-destructive editing is that you can have an image in your background layer and you can apply effects and add things to the image without actually changing the base image. So for example, if I go to one of my folders and I quickly grab just an image, I'll grab the one I edited in a live stream the other day. As you can see, we've got this image here now, and that is now our background image. If I hit this plus button here, that creates a new layer, which I can then take my brush tool, I can make it nice and small, and I can just add random things to this image, and I can just turn that layer on and off. If I want to add more to it, I can either do the same thing in the same layer, or I can actually add another layer like so. And I can keep doing that as much as I want, really. I can just keep on drawing like a crazy fool. And if we want to, we can adjust the blend modes. The blend modes basically affect how the pixels on the layer that you're using or that you have selected interact with the pixels below. So for example, you have darken, which means that the color or the pixels in your layer will only show if they are darker than the pixels that they are above. You can have multiply, which basically multiplies the darkness together. You've got color burn, which multiplies the blues. You've got linear burn, you've got darker color. These are all very, very interesting ways of playing around. You can actually have lighten, so it's basically the opposite of darkening. Pixels will only show if they are lighter than the pixels below them. Screen, again, that's more of a multiplying the pixel brightness together with the pixels below it. Color dodge, color burn. Generally speaking, I will not really use these ones. I'll tend to stick to soft light overlay and linear light. They're my kind of go-to, but you can play around with these. And again, we'll probably have a video explaining how these blend modes work for each layer. So as well as this, we can actually drag our layers around, so we can have layers above or below however we want to, which is really useful as well. As you can see, we can just drag these around and do that whenever we want to. We also have the fill tool, but if we want to change the tool, we can actually right click on this icon, and as you can see, there are multiple options available. In fact, the gradient tool is a really useful tool. Any of the tool buttons that you see that have a triangle mean that there are multiple options available. So if I click on the marquee selection tool, you can see that I can select ellipses, I can select single rows or single columns. If I go to the lasso tool, I've got lasso, polygonal lasso and magnetic lasso. I've also got the magic wand, the quick selection and the object selection. It really is quite in depth, and there's plenty of options available to you. You can even do it with text. You can have vertical text, you can have vertical type mask tools, horizontal type mask tools. So you can do quite a bit, and I'm actually going to show you the horizontal mask tool. If I just drag this up like so, and we go to the horizontal type mask tool, I'm just going to drag out something like this. So I can now just create a selection. I'm just going to say plugin heck. Now if I press the accept button, what that does is that now gives me a selection of the letters, but it doesn't actually create the letters. And what that allows me to do is use my gradient tool, and I can actually apply a gradient to create, and that is a raster straight away. So that's not a font, that's pixels with color applied to them. So I can do what I like with those, which is really useful. So that's the very basics of our interface. I would highly recommend that you guys have a little bit of a play and experiment with the different functions and tools and see what each one does. In the next video, we will go into a little bit more depth about blend modes and other such things. So thanks very much for watching, guys. I hope you found that useful. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. But until then, you take damn good care of yourselves, all right? Bye-bye.